Hey, everybody, welcome back to Taps and Patience. We are doing our 21st episode, which I guess means that we can drink now. I'm AJ with Design the Everything here with Harrison of Precision Ingenuity. Hey, Harrison, how are you doing?
Oh, doing pretty good. How are you doing this evening?
I am feeling a little frazzled, but other than that, fine.
Frazzled? What's got you all
Frazzled.
frazzled?
So I started working on the pen today well, I did some other stuff first, but I started working on the pen at about 10 o'clock today. I came into the shop at about 9 o'clock, and I've basically not left except to go to the bathroom. It is now about 8:30, and which I mean isn't too unusual for me. But then also my wife and kids were in the shop the whole day. And so there were
Mm-hmm.
like kids running around, and my wife was working on a little bit of a carpentry project. And so there were just saws running and vacuums and the random orbit sander, and kids were running around, and it was just lots of noise and chaos all day.
Well, that sounds like it was very eventful. So, I saw that you you posted some stories of your new block and of your machining of your pen. So,
Yep.
that looked really cool.
I have the button done, or the Bolton as I call it, the button bolt. And I have the first tip of it off the machine. I have some tweaking to do on this part, but this should technically be functional.
Okay. Did the ER call it blocks work well?
The ER call it block was great. I'm really glad I had that. And I kind of want two or three more so I could put more than one part on the mill at a time.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that looked really good. And as I was watching your video, I started thinking about slitting saws and going, "Man, I really should get a few because I don't have
Yeah.
any."
At this
So
point, they're kind of my everything tool. Like I use them for a lot of stuff.
that's what it sounds like between you and Surveying Solutions. It sounds like I should probably invest in a few.
Did you see my Instagram post from, I don't know, an hour or two ago, where I was
Maybe.
using the slitting saw as a finishing tool?
Yes, I think I did see that one. Yeah.
Okay. I played with that for at least 2 hours, but the bolt was originally going to be a 2-op part, or excuse me, a 3-op part, machining the top, machining the bottom, and then just popping a hole in the side. And I realized that if I used the slitting saw to undercut it, I could make it a 2-op part. So do most of the machining in the first op and then just pop the hole in the second op.
Mm-hmm.
And it took me a little while to get good finishes because I'm machining a 3/8 inch piece of plastic that's sticking up an inch and a half. So
Mm-hmm.
finishes were not my friend. But by using that slitting saw, I came by once with a circular tool path and roughed everything out. And then I went back with a boring tool path and did a finish. And it looks pretty good. It almost looks like a turned finish.
That's awesome. So that sounds like it was a big success.
It took me, I think, 6 tries to get a part that I'm was mostly happy with.
Mm-hmm.
But yep, I got it working. The bigger problem was let's see, so how do I explain this? The part kind of looks like a lollipop where it's got a
Mm-hmm.
thinner shaft going up, and then it's got a cylinder on the top that's it's slightly under 3/8 inch diameter, and it has some vertical fluting in it or jimping in it. And the lollipop part is the lollipop stick part. The stick part is what I was cutting with the slitting saw. And
Mm-hmm.
I was able to get decent finishes on that. But on the head of the lollipop, that's where I was struggling, even though I was doing it before I removed the material on the bottom, just because I was getting chatter, pretty much no matter what I did.
Okay. Were you using a larger diameter tool or a smaller diameter end mill? Like how big was the tooling you were using on that?
I was using a 1/8 inch tool.
Okay, so that's pretty small. I was gonna say because whenever I've had problems, if I go down to a smaller tool size and go slower, I usually get a better finish on larger stick
Mm-hmm.
out stuff. Although I will say this, um, this week or last week I was working on some stainless steel parts, and I was using a 1/4 inch 5 flute end mill, long reach, to clean
Okay.
up one of the edges of a 1 inch thick stainless steel part. And I was in low belt, so my RPM was limited to
Mm.
2,000. And I forgot that, and it used the preset where my RPM needed to be at like
Oh.
3,300, and I
uh
didn't realize it, and it ran, and I was like, oh crap. I was like when it got done, I realized it when it was like about halfway through it, and I was like, well, it's still cutting, it still sounds decent, whatever. I'll just let it finish and then I'll check it. And I checked it, and I had some of the best finishes I've ever had on stainless
Really?
steel. Yeah, and
Well, it's
so
yeah,
I
because
was
you're
just
taking a high feed per tooth. That makes
yeah,
sense.
I was taking about double the feed per tooth at a slower RPM, and I was just like, okay, I'm saving this setting as like a new finishing setting for stainless. So
Yeah, that's
uh,
what stainless likes is a high feed, slow speed.
yes, but when I'm roughing, it's a little too slow, and so I usually take a little bit lighter of a chip load so I can take a bigger step over. So, but for this, it was just a finishing
Yes.
pass, and it liked it for the
Yeah.
finishing pass.
Yeah.
So,
That makes sense. One of the things I did realize when I was trying to get the finish on the lollipop better was to slow down my speed, and I was
mm-hmm,
using a small tool. It's only an 1/8 inch tool, and so normally you'd run those at 10K RPM, basically no matter what material you're cutting, just because you're
mm-hmm,
trying to get above 160 surface feet or whatever that works out to be.
mm-hmm.
And I cut it in half, and that definitely helped. I also I tried ramping down, I tried stepping with a traditional contour, and I ended up plunge milling it, which left better finishes, though it's a little bit more inconsistent.
Yeah. So, one thing we haven't talked about yet that I was just thinking about is how are you going to lock your pen or into the extension or retraction, or is it going to be you're not going to extend and retract it? It's just going to be a constant length.
So do you mean like the clicky mechanism? Is that what
Yes.
you're asking?
Mm-hmm.
So this pen is based off of a hybrid between a clicky pen and a bolt action pen. It
Okay.
has a slot in it that looks like a bolt action slot.
Mm-hmm.
However, there is no bolt that you actuate with your thumb. Instead, you press it on the end of it with your thumb, like you would a normal clicky pen. And there is a pin that rides in that bolt action pen style groove.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you click down the pen, the the pin goes down and gets kind of pushed over to the right. And then when
Mm-hmm.
you let go of it, it catches in a little notch. So that's
Okay.
how you get it into the I'm going to write position. And then to get it back into the I'm not going to write position, you twist the button about an eighth of a turn. And that kind of pushes it over a detent, and then it rises back up into the fully retracted position.
Gotcha. So it's a push to write and a twist to store, basically.
Store, yes.
Okay. Interesting.
Which I haven't seen anybody else do. It's so simple that I can't imagine someone hasn't done it,
Mm-hmm.
but it's at very least not common.
Yeah.
And
No, that's
it's got a good fidget factor because there's a second motion. It's not just like
mm-hmm.
click unclick. It's click twist click twist.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. That's exciting. So anything else you got
Um,
going on?
the other thing that I've been doing is the retrofit kits for the carabiners.
Okay.
Which did we talk about those last week?
I know we talked about them. I think we talked about them on the podcast.
Okay. Well,
Um,
if we didn't talk about them, some people have had issues with my carabiners popping open, particularly in their pockets or in a bag. And my solution for that is to make it two little pieces of aluminum that kind of sandwich around the gate, like around the little claw that opens and closes, so that you can't push it open to the left or to the right side. And these little pieces of aluminum, they're, I don't know, like 3/16 of an inch wide and, an eighth of an inch thick and maybe half an inch or 3/4 of an inch long. They're very small little aluminum parts, and I've been cranking those out. I use the salami slice method, and last night I ran 196 of them out of one bar.
Whoa.
Yeah,
That's
unattended.
crazy.
The only thing I have to do is pick them out of my chip pan when it's done, which is a little bit of a chore.
Yeah.
But 196 parts, no human interaction other than loading and sifting through chips.
That's awesome.
So
I do have a confession to make on these. Mine actually came undone, and I lost it. I was able to find
a carabiner?
No, I found it again. But I was at church, and I handed my keys to my wife, and I was like, "Where's my carabiner?" And then I couldn't find it, and thankfully, when I got home, it was on the next to my car where I parked my car on the ground, and so I almost lost it, and I was like, "No!" And then I found it, and I was like, "Oh."
I had a realization the other day. It was something I'd forgotten about. When I was prototyping the carabiners, I was just getting all this material from Send Cut Send. They have like 4 little checkbox or 4 little radio buttons that you can select from when you're selecting the size or the thickness of the material. And they give it in just like fractional values. They have like 1/8 inch, 3/16, 1/4 inch, whatever. And material never comes like that. It's always some random value. Like when you order 1/8 inch steel, what you're really getting is 11 gauge steel, which is 120 thou. It's not 125 thou, and there's a range for it. So like I knew when I ordered 3/16 inch material, it was not going to be 3/16 inch material. And when I was prototyping them, Send Cut Send was sending me material that was like 210 thousandths thick. But for the production carabiners, it was 180. And
interesting.
When I ran it, I was just like, oh, that's weird. And I moved on. But what that means is my prototype carabiners were like 30 thousandths thicker than my production carabiners. And that might explain a lot of the reason why
your rigidity isn't as high.
The rigidity isn't as high. And I never had that issue with my prototype people. But actually there was one instance, which I did know about. But I carried one for months and I never had any issues with it. But when I went to production, I did have people with issues.
Yeah.
Not to blame it on someone else. Like I knew there was a difference and I chose to go forwards. I just didn't think through all of the consequences.
Yeah. And to be fair, I don't think anyone would have caught that their first time through. It's a new product. You're just now doing your mass release. You feel like you're doing everything in the right order and have taken all the right steps, and then there's a small change in variation, and it's like, oh, that's nothing major. Like I don't think it's fair to criticize anything that's happened with these carabiners, and I still love sharing them with everyone that I see personally. But it's just one of those challenges that now that it's the fun part is going back and making a new one so that now we can do Carabiner 2.0.
Yes. Yeah, which I've was kind of thinking about earlier and trying to figure out how to do it. And, originally the plan was just to use like a slitting saw to change these. I'm now sitting here going, okay, am I only thinking that because I was trying to use the same blanks and I'm going, am I only trying to use the same blanks because I already have a handful of blanks? I have 100 blanks on hand. Is that the only reason that I'm trying to use the same blanks? And I think the answer is yes.
Yeah.
So I had originally asked you to do some design changes, which I assume you haven't started on because I haven't sent you a PO. Okay,
nope.
Good. And I kind of sat on that for a while going, is this the sunk cost fallacy?
Yeah.
And I think it is. I think the answer is to move on to a full revision B, which I will release with my next Carabiner Kickstarter.
Yes.
So there'll be a matched pair.
I really like that idea. I assumed, and maybe I assumed wrong when you asked me to make those changes, that you were only doing that to try to avoid putting anything on the remainders, and that was not going to become your new design. Maybe I assumed wrong, but
Yes.
that's how I
Yes
took
and
it.
no. Yeah. I at the time I was thinking that would just be my new design. But
Okay.
I had more time to soak on that and was like, okay, maybe I'm not doing that for the right reasons.
No, no. Yeah. I would definitely change that. Um I just change the design and go from there. Now, another thing you mentioned, did you change the gap here as well? Was that something that you did? I'm trying to remember.
So the blanks are the same, but I realized that you can just kind of preload them a little bit by just giving them a little bit of a stretch in the wrong direction.
Mm-hmm.
And yep, just like that. And that adds some springiness. And I did that to all of them.
Okay, gotcha.
Um, so
Because,
that may have contributed.
well, what I'm wondering is if you bring it closer and they don't have as much preload, does that make it less or more likely that they're gonna bend to the side, bend out of the way?
I think I think it doesn't make it more or less likely to bend to the side. I think it makes it more catastrophic if it bends to the side. Because if
Gotcha.
it's just bending open a little bit, you're less likely to lose your keys. But if it's going pling and opening, 3/4 of an inch, then you are more likely to lose a key off of it.
Gotcha. Now, I don't have your little aluminum add-on here to the
Mm-hmm.
side, but have you played with those? And like, if you have a little bit of side lockup, are these things like dead nuts? Like they're not going anywhere, unless.
Yes.
Okay,
There's you can push hard enough to bend the aluminum, but it's like pretty reasonable force. It's not something you would do on accident.
gotcha.
It
Nice.
does make it makes it, how do I word this? It makes the lockup a little less satisfying sometimes because if you push it just a little bit to the side,
Mm-hmm.
the little wings that I'm adding on can clip the side of the carabiner and they kind of give you like a click click instead of just a click, which I mean, it's fine. It still works. It's just the feel of it isn't quite as good. I'm hoping tumbling will help that because I didn't have any sort of deburring on there when I was testing them, and the tumbled ones should have a little bit of a fillet on the outside just from the media breaking down the sharp corners, and I'm hoping that'll help guide it a little bit.
Question: with the carabiners that you have left, if you wanted to salvage this design, could you set it up as a locking carabiner where that thing slides in
Mm.
this groove right here, and then you can slide it up and down and have it actually lock it out to where it doesn't open, and then make it and turn it from a bug into a feature?
Interesting. I really like the idea of it sliding in the notch. That's actually genius. Um, I mean, I don't see why not. I was just gonna sell the rest of my like these revision A ones at a little bit of a discount and then just ship them with the retrofit on them.
I would want to, if it was me, I would love to have the ability to have it slide and lock out, and then have that as the retrofit kit for the other one, so it has a little bit of additional functionality.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would almost keep these as um
The
the
locking
locking
ones.
as a locking version.
Then it would be good for someone who wanted to use it for like camping too,
Mm-hmm.
because you're like backpacking where they need the ultra lightweight. I will keep that in my back pocket. I will think about that.
Okay.
That's a good idea. I would probably need to make the lock out of titanium, not aluminum, or at least do it out of stainless. But
Maybe, I don't know, because you're not relying on it to, because you've already got the locking feature built in. You're just keeping it from separating when you're putting pressure on it.
yeah,
Uh, so, but anyways, it's a thought, and I would love to see that, something that would just
yeah,
be another layer to the fidget factor.
that is a great idea. You could even do like a magnetic detent
Mm-hmm.
where you it's
Turn this
still
bug into a
constrained.
feature.
Yeah. Oh, I like this. I like the locking idea. Yeah, because you could do a magnetic detent where it'll stay up or stay down, but then it's still constrained by the carabiner itself, so you're not relying on the magnet for any strength.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to try this. I have so many things to do right now, but I'm gonna have to try this. Maybe that'll just be a built-in feature to my next run, my
Yeah.
next design. Because the theory behind my next design is it's going to be the same flexure basically, but it is going
Mm-hmm.
to be an S-shaped carabiner,
Mm-hmm.
and they are going to basically have scales on them, like a knife. Like they'll have knife scales on both sides, which gives some customization. I can make like there will be think of it as a carabiner Oreo. It'll
Mm-hmm.
be scale, then the titanium flexure, and then a scale. The scales won't bend at all and can therefore be made out of just about any material,
Mm-hmm.
which gives it a lot of like customizability. And so somehow at those scales, I could have some sort of locking thing. I have to think about that, but that solves basically all of the problems I've had with this carabiner is doing the scales.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I like it. All
so what have
right.
you been up
Well,
to? We've talked about carabiners.
so I've just been in work mode trying to get through some stuff, and I've had a pretty big week last week, and I'm gonna have a pretty big day tomorrow.
Okay.
Um, so last week I met with a company who had a big project that they wanted us to work on,
Mm-hmm.
and we've revised it, and they might have two projects for us. And this would be a design,
Okay.
like an engineering design project. So, which we haven't really talked about much on this channel, but engineering services is one of the things that I offer, and so this would be a really big engineering job,
Okay.
which would be awesome. And then we'd also make it, so that'd be cool too. Um, and then that company that I was talking about when Surveyed Solutions was we were on with him, the one that had that part that I really wanted to do.
Yes.
I have a meeting with them tomorrow.
No
They're
way. The one that
they're
you were gonna like do on a router and
yeah, yeah,
dude, that's awesome.
they're coming to my shop tomorrow. So they're gonna come visit the facility and talk about future work. Um,
Nice.
so I have been working on this for so long, and I'm so excited to have them come.
That's
Um,
awesome.
and because of that, yesterday we completely cleaned and rearranged the shop.
Okay. Makes sense.
So the shop, like we really should have done a better job of taking photos of the evolution of the shop, but it's just gone through another evolution, and we've just changed everything around. Although today we had a massive sleet and ice storm, and so I've been stuck at home. My cousin went into the shop because he's got a pickup truck and he's a lot closer.
Mm-hmm.
I probably could make it in, um, but my wife was here alone and she might have needed me to take her somewhere, so I just kind of stayed home in case she needed to go anywhere, because she can't drive in any of this weather. Um, and so I just did some work from home today.
Okay.
But tomorrow she's off tomorrow, so I'm gonna just go in. I'm gonna try to go in tomorrow, see how it goes. But so I'm real excited about that. And then another big job that I was looking towards. Um, I've got confirmation. So this would be a continuous job. That one that we talked about, the laser engraving work. I've talked to that guy, and I've got the green light from him. I haven't bought another laser yet, because I haven't seen a PO, but we're good. And he told me that he's going to place an order with us. Now he's just waiting on the final prototype from the people that are making the thing, because I'm just making the nameplate. The people that are actually making it, he's got two prototypes that he's getting from them, and then he's going to be taking those around to show a bunch of people, to start collecting POs from other people. And
Okay.
once all of that work is done, then we're going to start pumping these things out for him. So
Nice.
super excited about that. And the company that he's having do it, I was talking to one of their engineers because I went to school with him, and they said that he's been projecting as much as 300 a month, which would
Okay.
be huge for us. That'd be a lot of work. which would be awesome.
Because that's like at least 10 a day, assuming you work every day.
So, which would be awesome. And then today we just had someone place almost $1,000 order on Etsy.
Wow.
So
On Etsy?
on Etsy.
Wow.
So so we're over 2,000 for the month now, for this month.
Nice.
So things are starting to pick up, and I am just over the moon, which is good because it's the end of the month, and so I paid all my bills, and I have like no cash.
Yes.
So the business is finally starting to produce right when I'm running out of money.
That's good.
But we'll see how it goes. I'm still nervous, but my spirits are high, if that makes sense. Because everything's like, I have enough big projects that are all starting to work out. And then another big project that I've been working on for, it's a gun related product that I've been working on for the last 3 months in the background. I don't think I've really talked about this one much, but it's an item that a local gun shop asked us to look at making, and it's a muzzle device. It was originally created during World War II or shortly after. Maybe might have been the Vietnam War. Anyways, it goes on the end of a gun, and I think it would have been Vietnam because I don't think they really had the modern guns that we have today in World War II. Anyways, it goes on the end, and it helps with machine gun fire. It helps with your recoil, with your keep your recoil under control. And they're butt ugly, and but a lot of people really like them, and no one makes a replica. And so the originals sell for like 500 to 1,000.
Okay.
And so he's going to start making we're going to make these for him, and he's going to sell them as a replica. And he's already got a whole bunch of people lined up to buy them. And if it will become a product line for him that we'll start manufacturing. So, which is awesome, because the more of that stuff I can do for people like you and this guy and some other people, like, I'm really liking that. I'm hoping that we can do that. And the thing is it's not much machining. It's a lot of sheet metal stuff.
Okay.
And so I'm probably going to have to get like a hot shot oven because it's got to get heat blued and then dipped. And so I had to borrow a buddy's for the first prototype. So there's going to be some equipment that I'm going to need to acquire as I ramp up production of these things. And we got our very first prototype done last week, and I took it to him, and he was over the moon. I just today ordered some more Sencut Sen sheet metal parts of this item that I had to make a bunch of changes to. Because now that I've got it assembled, I can actually compare the two side by side and go, okay, this part didn't line up, need to adjust it this way. You know how prototyping stuff goes. So
is this the same part that you were making custom dies for? Was that a different part?
Yes.
Okay.
Same part. So I'm probably gonna have to remake all my dies.
Oh
no. or at least see if I can remachine some of them. If I can't remachine them, I'm gonna have to remake them. So we'll see. Some of them, because of how much I'm having to change them, I don't know if I'm going to be able to save the current dies. But we'll see.
Are they aluminum or tool steel?
They're cold rolled steel.
Cold rolled steel. Okay.
Yeah. So they're really cheap material wise. Yeah. But it requires a lot of welding, and then you got to heat them all up and heat blue them. So that's going to be the two, in addition to using a press to form them. So it's not really machining. Like, there's very little machining on these things. And
Could you
so
cold blue instead, or send that out?
not really, because the old one you can tell it was dipped in oil because it's got that oil scaling from when you dip it. Like if you get it really hot and blue and then you dip it in the oil, it's just got that texture. Like mine looks too clean because I dipped it in water.
Yeah.
Um, and so I have to do the hot blue and then dip it in like an. He's the guy that I'm doing this for. He's like, find the crappiest motor oil that's been
Hmm.
like used and use that. So that'll make it look right.
Yeah. You have to get it really hot though if you want the scaling. Because I'm doing basically the same bluing on my coins, but I'm not getting them that hot.
Yeah, I need to get them up to around 700-800 degrees, um, all the way through.
See? Celsius? Not Fahrenheit.
Fahrenheit.
That sounds way too
Fahrenheit.
cold.
That's what I got them up to last time, and it blew just fine.
Huh.
It
That seems
just it
cold to
just
me.
it I might need to go hotter, and maybe that was some of my problem. But that's what I went to. Like when I was doing research online for this particular type of steel, they said that's the temperature I needed to be at. It's like
Interesting.
what like it's one of the 10,000s or 1,000 series steel.
Yeah.
So
And you probably have that going for you. My coins are stainless, so
yeah,
that's not
stainless needs to be a lot
exactly.
hotter.
Yeah. Because I do. I'm hoping to find a chart here. So I would call mine. I get mine to just a very dull red, like
Hmm.
basically where it's just starting to emit its own light, which looks like it's around 1100, 1200 degrees.
Yeah, mine's not emitting its own light. If I'm emitting its own light, I think I'm too hot at that point.
Yeah, because
Although
you're at
maybe I
like
do need to go that hot.
purple,
Yeah,
purple blue somewhere in there of the temper colors.
yeah. So maybe I do need to go hotter. I don't know. Um, but regardless, it was a success, and um, I need to go talk to him because he I left it with him because he didn't have a gun that it would fit on, and the prototype he's supposed to be he has some at his house that he's going to bring by and try to test fit it to make sure it works. See if there's anything else I need to change.
Yep.
Um, so with that in mind, our future, our Etsy's picking up, our LaserWorks. We have some stuff coming down the line for it. Um, I got some engineering work coming down the line and um, some potential product stuff from this other guy coming down the line. So like, it's looking like I have a good, in addition to all the gun stuff we're doing, which right now we're having to stop production on some job shop work, and we're going to have to switch over to some gun stuff because we have a backlog of like 4 or 5 guns that we need to get pushed through. Um, so that's probably what we're going to be doing tomorrow. Um, so it's just exciting. I'm excited to be busy, but now I gotta produce. So
Yes.
it's a different level of nervousness now because
And
now I don't want to get behind.
don't you love how it's like, not busy, not busy, doing some sales, doing some sales. Oh look, PO. Oh look, PO. Oh look, PO. Oh, these parts are all due at the same time.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much. So I was lucky because the big order that I have right now that's almost $10,000 in parts for a local business. Um, it's due second week of February, and it's a little over 100 parts, and I've probably got 30 to 40 of them done. So I've got a healthy head start on those. So I'm excited about that. Um, and that's why I'm comfortable putting that stuff to the side for a little bit to try to get some of this gun stuff done is because I was able to get a head start on those, and I still have plenty of time left over. So, um, what else?
I have a question for you. Do you guys in your shop keep track of your time? Like, do you record, Harrison spent 4 hours retramming the mill, or, like, do you
No,
take notes of that at all?
not really, not right now. we don't have a good system for doing that. Like it needs to be easy, and
Yes.
we don't have anything that is easy right now. A system that we might end up doing at some point is just writing our time, because we try to print out everything that we're working on, so we might just have to start writing our time on those sheets. And that might be the easiest thing. And then at the end, we can compile all those and put them in the computer somewhere. Um, but that way we can write, I worked on this for an hour today, or an hour yesterday, or 3 hours the day before, or whatever. That way we can just have it at least written down on something.
Hmm.
That might be the easiest thing to do.
I I started doing that recently, and not very granular. Like I'm not writing down, I wrote, like if I'm doing a setup for a part, I'm not writing down, okay, I spent 13 minutes setting tools and 26 minutes setting up the fixture on the machine. And, like I'm just writing down, from 10 to 11, I did this setup. And I don't know, I haven't done it enough yet to really see if it is going to be helpful or not, because I
Mm-hmm.
just have a list of time that I've spent. I don't have like graphs or anything on that yet.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I tried to make Airtable generate a graph for me, but Airtable will only do it by count, not by duration. So it's like, I, okay, I've spent half of my time doing shipping, and it's like, no, that's not true. I have just had more instances where I have shipped something, but shipping something takes 5 minutes, whereas doing a setup on a machine might take me, 45 minutes, and it can't tell the difference yet. So I'll have to probably download it and put it in Excel. But
Gotcha. I need to look at Airtable because I've heard of a lot of people using Airtable, and it'd be interesting to compare it to Monday, and just see features wise how they compare.
yeah, it has its strengths and weaknesses. Like I would I have a tendency to look at Airtable and go, "Oh, this is like Excel. Like it looks like Excel, therefore it must be Excel," but it's not Excel. And it does things differently. And like you can kind of shoehorn Airtable to be anything you want it to, but it's not going to be great at those things. Like you can shoehorn it into being a task manager, and it does pretty well as a task manager. It does pretty well for communicating between teams or between people. But like in the past, I use it to log expenses, which
Mm-hmm.
it makes it very easy to enter a new expense. Or like now I use it to track mileage, like my work mileage, and it does a really good job of tracking that. But you can't expect it then to take that and do like math on it. And
Gotcha.
that's kind of what I wanted it to be. I basically wanted it to be Excel.
Yeah. And that's what I didn't. That's what I like Monday for, is that it's not Excel.
Yes.
Um, that's my biggest the biggest thing I like about it. Like I love Excel. I'm an extremely Excel heavy user at times. I mean, a lot of the designs that I've done uh, mechanically, I've used Excel in place of actually simulating within the software because I find it easier at times. Um, but for managing our work for two of us, the Excel is just too many cells and harder to.
Yes.
It's too visually dense of a
Yes.
workflow to actually be functional in that aspect.
Yeah. Now, have you looked into Google App Sheets? Because this App Sheets, I think, is the best of both worlds.
I have very little. Um, I know there's a lot of power there, and I do have programming experience, and I don't know how much programming there actually is, but I know there's some advanced
None.
programming there isn't.
It's all so Google App Sheets. It's basically a way of accessing a Google Sheet. They're like
Mm-hmm.
Google is Excel. It's just a way of accessing it and laying out the data more usefully. And so
Okay,
any programming is basically done in Excel.
gotcha. Yeah. I haven't messed with any of that, but I would love to, and I've thought about doing it because I thought about trying to set up way to do quoting where I had an Excel sheet in the background that kept all the data, all the actual data, and had a form sheet that you would just go through and fill out, and then it would give you spit out a price as you went through and filled out all the information, and then it would just
I
log it.
should I should send you one I did for my last job, because that's how it worked. Is there was like 3 sheets, and in the no, that's not true. It was all one sheet. So you would. Oh, sorry. I'm replaying the whole development process through my head. Okay, there was a cover sheet, and then there were multiple sheets behind it, and for each, it assumed you were quoting an assembly of parts, which is basically all we did, and you would each subcomponent would get its own sheet, and that would do everything from like calculating material costs to estimating the number of machine hours and estimating the number of man hours. You would just look at your part and say, it's this big, it has this many tapped holes, it has this many. It was sheet metal too, so it has this many bends in it. It has this many tapped holes. It needs this many pieces of hardware, and it would figure out how many sheets of material you needed, and do some rough estimation on how long it would take to tap all the holes and to make all the bends and profit and all of that. And then the front sheet would just be a cover sheet that wouldn't have all the nitty gritty details. It would have a price breakdown for each part and in different quantities and so on.
Nice. Yeah, that'd be super useful. I would love to, and that's one thing I thought about trying to figure out on Monday, but I haven't had time to mess with it yet. See if Monday has any functionality like that built in.
See, again, you could do it on Airtable, but it would be incredibly messy because basically you would have to have your entire quote in one row. Because formulas only work within the row. You can't refer to other.
Okay.
Other data. Yeah, you can't refer to other rows from your row because Airtable doesn't differentiate between like where something is. It's just one entry in a database.
Gotcha.
So you can sort them, but you can't refer to one specific other row.
That makes sense.
So you have to have just a very long.
So, okay. Well, that's a lot to think on. Speaking of which, another thing that happened today was because I was home all day. I don't usually get on the Discord very often because I'm not always on my computer. And I reached out on the job shop tab of the Instamachinist, and I was like, hey, does anyone have a resin printer? And then I, because I had some parts I wanted to have resin printed. And it turned on to this whole debate about, is resin printing the right process for what you're trying to do? And like in the back of my head, I'm like, this is a really great topic, but I just want someone with a resin printer to like, even if it's the wrong thing, I just want to get it printed. Does anyone have this? Like, I'm so glad for all of the discussion it invoked. And there was a lot of really good ideas that came out of it that I was like, I hadn't thought about that. I hadn't thought about that. I hadn't thought about that. But at the end of the day, I was just like, so does anyone have a resin printer?
Yeah. That can happen in that group, yes. They like to debate.
It's like, I was like, I get it because I am totally that same type of person that'll be like, I see what you're trying to do, and I think that there's a much better method to do what you're trying to. Like, I am that type of person. But at the same time, I'm also like, resin printer? Like, this like, I understand the points you're making. They're very valid, good points. But I want to try it on a resin printer.
Yeah.
Like, this is a prototype thing that I am wanting to eventually produce a bunch of them if it works out. But it'd be really cool to see if resin printing actually worked, because I want to get a resin printer in my shop at some point. And if I can get work that justifies getting one, then I could produce it in my own shop on demand. And that would be amazing. I wouldn't have to make a mold. I wouldn't have to get it urethane cast. I wouldn't have to talk to Chinese suppliers. Like, this is all stuff that was talked about in that conversation. It was just like, oh yeah, that's, really good ideas, but resin printer, anyone got one?
Yeah. It's sometimes there's like things that if you just put them out on the internet, you know what everybody's going to say. And you're like, yes, I know what you're saying. I've thought about that. I'm not going to do that because I have, these reasons. But like 45 people say the same thing. And it's like, I'm very tired of remaking the same response.
Like I had one person who gave some good suggestions, but also was like, you could take rubber and freeze it, and then you could turn it on your mill or on your lathe. And I was just like, that is way more work than what I'm trying to do here.
Yeah. I posted today a video of making not this part, but the button bolt on my mill. And I posted that on Instagram. And immediately I got like 8 comments that was like, just put the stock in your spindle and then, build a gang tooling setup for your mill. And it's like, okay, I could do that. But in the time that it would take me to get that set up, figure out how to work, risk crashing my machine, I could just use my mill like a mill. And like, yes, I know it's a lathe part, but I know how to do it as a mill.
Yeah.
And granted, I would love to try that at some point. It sounds fun. And I really like the idea of loading up my ATC with stock and running a whole bunch of parts that are just in my ATC. Like, that
it'd be sweet.
That pleases me. But that I like that idea. But I'm not going to do that right now, trying to figure out how to make this product. Like, I don't need to add a new process that is abusing the capabilities of a machine. It's not what the machine is supposed to do. And I'm like, I don't want to add a new process that's janky to a new design that I'm trying for the first time. Well, I guess technically the second time. It's like, no, this is not the time and place. Plus, this pen takes, I believe it's 12 tools or 14 tools. So it's not just putting one tool in my vise. Like, it's a legitimate gang tooling block to get this working. End of rant. That's all.
We're both a little ranty this evening. It's okay. But no, it's funny. And a lot of I was thinking about this today. When I got a backstory here a second. When I was in high school, I worked at the Little Debbie thrift store here in my hometown.
Say that again. You went a little robot-y.
I said when I was in high school, I worked at a Little Debbie thrift store in my hometown. Okay. Because we have the Little Debbie plant here, and when I got there, I'd been there for like 2 weeks, and the system in the back that they had for organizing their cases when it came in was just horrible. Like, they were just stacking stuff on top of each other, and if you wanted the most recent stuff, you had to unpile everything to get to the bottom of the stack to restock the shelf. And it was just, stuff was coming in, and you just had these leaning towers of boxes everywhere, and you had, like, you'd have to go down this one rack, and then you'd have to turn and go down another rack, and then turn to go to another rack, and then it would dead end. And then if you were in the wrong rack, you had to go all the way around and then make it like, it was laid out bad. Boxes were stocked on top of each other, and yada yada yada. And I was the fresh new blood, and so I was like, Mr. Manager, we need to make all these changes, yada 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 yada. And he took my head off. He was like, listen here, you're just some punk kid who's been here 2 weeks, shut your trap and do your job. And, that made me feel, like that big. And I was just like, oh. But what I didn't know is they had been working on something almost identical what I had been suggesting. But they've been working on it for a long time, trying to get that process pushed through. And there was stuff that they had to do, and they had it more thought out than I had it thought out at the time. Flash forward many, many years, and I'm at my first job as a mechanical engineer. I'm there for a year or two, and we get these new engineers that come in and join us. They work on our system for a couple days and they're like, man, this system's junk. My old job, yada, yada, yada,
Yeah.
yada. Da, 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 da. And it's like, now I'm on the other end for the first time and I'm going, you guys don't know what you're talking about. Use the system for a little while. Then you'll understand why we do it. And I feel like, the older I get, the more you need to. I've learned that you just need to sit back and listen to an idea. And I'm still bad about this. I'm still bad about injecting my thoughts without thinking them all the way through. But I'm hoping that I'm a little slower to listen to everyone's ideas first before opening my trap and making a suggestion.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the times people have really good ideas, or even if your idea you feel like is a bad idea, they have a good reason for doing it that way, that you might not understand with the suggestion you're trying to suggest. And so it's just interesting because I've gone on that whole journey, and I'm trying to learn from it.
Yeah.
Sorry, kind
And I
of
mean,
a little
you
bit of
have
a
to be
rant there.
careful to not just disregard all ideas because you've thought of something more.
Yes.
Like, you still
Yes.
have to listen. And that's kind of where the challenge comes in, is you have to be both. You have to
Mm-hmm.
be, both the new guy and the old curmudgeon at the same time.
Yes, and that's such a hard line to walk because you don't want to become the old guy that's stuck in his ways either. Because that's
Exactly.
one of the reasons I got into machining in the first place was because, I went to my machinist at my old job and was like, "Hey, can you do this?" And he'd be like, "No, I can't do that." And I'm like, "Well, what if you hold it like this?" He's like, "I've been doing this for 28 years. No one's ever done it that way. That's never going to work." Like, you don't want to be that guy either.
Yeah.
So, um, it's a balancing act. You gotta respect opinions, but be open to change.
Yeah.
So
Speaking of old curmudgeons, I'm getting tired. If you have nothing else, do you want to take us out?
yeah, I don't think I got anything else.
All right.
For those of you that have been listening to us ramble, we've kept it under 14 hours this time, and we thank you for hanging on to this shorter podcast. Please,
I mean, we're still almost an hour. It's not that short.
I know, but I mean, I feel like something like a lot of ours have been over the hour long, closer to
This
the
is true.
hour and a half and 2 hour mark. Anyways, thanks for hanging out with us. Please like, share, and tell your friends about a podcast, and we'll catch you all next week. So this is Harrison with Precision Ingenuity, signing out with AJ from Design the Everything.
Bye.